Hi, everyone, and welcome back to From Print to Pod. We are welcoming in Dr. Santina Wheat. She's going to speak about the article that was published on April 29th, 2025, her article, which is titled No One Knows What's Right for You, a Doctor Mom's Take on the Mommy Wars. And in it, Dr. Wheat shares an honest reflection on motherhood and medicine, reminding women that true balance comes from personal alignment, not from pleasing others or winning the mommy wars. So, Dr. Wheat, welcome, and just tell us quickly about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I am a family physician by training, and my day job is as a program director for the Northwestern Family Medicine residency at Del Nor. But I'm also a career and life coach. I really want to help people conquer the chaos that is in their lives and get to calm so that they get to enjoy both their home and work lives.
Thank you for that introduction. So, let's dive right into it. Your article so beautifully captures the tension moms often feel, especially when they're also professionals. What's one moment where you personally felt most judged, and how did you handle it?
I think that there's been so many times that I have felt judged, but it started with daycare. It really started with the events that were happening at daycare and the trying to determine where I needed to be. And I remember having these conversations with everyone about, do they think that the kids that are going to daycare have parents that don't work? And it was sort of the what becomes more important? Is it your kids or is it your patients? And it would just sort of felt like you could never make the right choice. And so that was what really came up. And I handled it by sort of taking a step back and understanding that there was not going to be a perfect. My husband and I did our best to really manage our calendars and try to make sure that there was one of us or a family member, at the time my mom, that could be available for our kids whenever there were those events. But also had a real conversation with the daycare about, this is what we need to be there. This is what we need to be able to be available. And so that was a real challenge. And I also had to work with myself to understand that it was going to be okay that I wasn't at everything. I wouldn't always make my patients happy. I wouldn't always make my kids happy, but I would do my best to be there for the things that really mattered. And that is a hard thing to accept, that you can't be perfect in every space, but that you can do what's right for you and in your family.
Indeed. You mentioned the unrealistic standards moms are held to. If you could change one cultural expectation around motherhood overnight, what would it be?
Wow, that's a great question. I would love to change the expectation that we have to do it all. I think that there's this expectation that you're supposed to be always smiley with your kids. You're supposed to know how to be at every single event, and you're supposed to be happy to be there. I feel like the scary truth that nobody wants to talk about is some of those events are horrible. Some of the things are not the what you want to spend your time doing. And so to understand that you don't have to be friends with all of the other moms at the events. You don't have to enjoy every single event, and that it's okay to know that you're not going to make every single one. I would just love to change the expectation that we have to be perfect.
Thank you for that. Being a physician adds another layer to the pressure. People assume that you know better about everything. So, how has your medical training helped, or how has it complicated your motherhood journey?
I actually think that it's more that it complicated. I think that as a physician, I had this understanding that I was supposed to hold everything in silos, that I was supposed to be a mom sometimes, and I was supposed to be a physician sometimes. And as a physician, I think that we're often taught to turn off our feelings. And that doesn't really work when you're a parent. You have to demonstrate to these little people how they're supposed to express their emotions and interact with the world. And our physician training just really is at odds with that. And so I've learned to be a little bit different. I have learned to not turn off my feelings at work. I have learned to share at home home with what I've been experiencing at work so that my kids know what it is I'm going through. Of course, in an age appropriate manner. My 3-year-old couldn't necessarily understand the patient death that I was experiencing. But I have really learned that that aspect of our training was causing me more burnout. That aspect of our training had to shift for me to be successful both at home and at work.
So you touch on the importance of trusting your own instincts as a mom. Was there a specific turning point when you really leaned into doing what was right for you, even if it wasn't popular?
I mentioned before that there's some things that you're not supposed to say that you don't enjoy. And that was really what it was. When I found that I was showing up to things and I didn't enjoy them, it could impact my kids in a negative way. I never wanted them to see that there wasn't 100% support from me, that there wasn't engagement for me. And so if I was going to show up to something and not really be present for them, then that wasn't the right thing for me to show up for. And so I had to learn how to manage that with my husband. What was the thing that I should be showing up for? What was the thing that he should be showing up for? And if there was something really going on at work that we couldn't be there, was there somebody else that we could have as a stand-in? And it really comes back to the can you be present and fully there for it? That's something that I've learned in lots of my life that when I can be present, that it's just so much more meaningful. And if I'm going to be sitting in the audience checking the urgent messages that are coming through, that's probably not the right place for me to be. And accepting that and accepting the presence was more important than actually putting it on my calendar and being there.
So let's talk about social media. This ahead of the social media marketing and networking conference that we are going to throw at SoMe that'll convert into an evergreen course that everyone can watch. You hinted at it amplifying the mommy wars, right? You
Mhm.
talk about the mommy wars. How do you personally navigate that pressure in your feeds or online communities?
I try to change the perspective. I try to say that there's not one right way. So, for example, one of the things that I see happen on social media all of the time is people say the only way to be a good mom is to X. And usually I see that as the only way to be a good mom is to go part-time or not work and to be at home. And that just doesn't work for me. That's not the right place for some people. Some people will not show up as their best selves if that is how they are interacting with their families. And so I try to switch the conversation about that and say the only way to be a great mom is to show up as your best self. And you have to figure out what that is. You have to figure out what your purpose for that is. That might mean that you're part-time and spend more time with your kids. You might know that that's not right for you, and showing up at work full time and getting to fill your cup with your patients or getting to fill your cup as a leader is the right thing to do because then you can come home filled with more joy and show up well with your kids. And so there's not one right way for each of us. We have to determine what that is. And so on my social media profile, I try to say there's not one right way. I try to say that it's about changing individual steps and finding what your own purpose is.
Yeah, I can identify with that. Definitely from the entrepreneurship perspective, it's very much of the same. So if you could give one piece of
Mhm.
advice to a brand new mom who's already feeling overwhelmed by outside opinions, what would it be?
The best thing that I can say is turn off the noise, turn off everything. Ask the questions that you have and be true with who you are and know that that's okay. You are going to get so much different advice. You're going to get the people that say you have to come back to work at 5 weeks. You're going to say that you should never come back to work. And know that what they're telling you is not necessarily right for you. And so I would just recommend turning it all off and going to the people that you trust and asking specific questions that will help you navigate that process. It's going to be bumpy, and there's going to be times when you're not okay. There's going to be times when you have to learn flexibility that you never thought you would need before. And all of that is okay. You are going to be the right mom for your family.
How do you think healthcare systems could better support new mothers, especially around judgment-free, individualized care?
I think this is a really challenging situation at the moment because there are so many conversations that are happening right now about leave policies. There are so many conversations that are happening about scheduling. I really think that a healthcare system's best bet, if they really wanted to protect new mothers and new parents in general, is just flexibility, is knowing that each parent is going to come back with a different set of needs. There's going to be some people that need to spend longer at home because of whatever reason. There's going to be some people that need a different schedule because it's what works with their childcare. There's going to be some people that want pumping breaks and some people that don't. And so the name of the game is really about having flexibility to help individual navigate through. That's hard for a large organization because they want it to be cookie cutter, right? They want it to be the same plan for everyone. And that is the hardest part. It's really about having I've seen some healthcare systems develop a champion to help with the flexibility. And I think that's an amazing strategy, but really it's about having flexibility and knowing that each person is a little bit different.
So looking back, is there anything that you once judged another mom for and now totally understand differently after walking in those shoes?
That's a great question. I had my children fairly young as a doctor, and so I was sort of in the thick of it to begin with. And I will say on the opposite side, I had these moments of, well, I showed up for that thing even though I was a mom. Why didn't they show up for that thing? And I think even as a mom, I was guilty of it for myself. And when I look back at that, some of that was because of the own burnout that I was experiencing, and that maybe I shouldn't shown up for some of those things because it made me have additional resentment. And so, what I have learned for myself and want other people to think about is really knowing that each story, each journey is different, that we have to understand the unique needs of each person, of each family, and each clinic, even, or each system. And so knowing that my path is not the right path for everyone else. And when I mentor people, when I talk to them, knowing that I can't tell them this is what you should do. I can only say this is what worked for me and take pearls of it if you can to help apply to your own life.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Wheat. And I will mention before we close that Dr. Wheat took part in the Leadership for Women in Healthcare online conference that's now an accessible evergreen course. So you can catch her in action there among her expert peers, and also is coming back for the second annual. So that's all very exciting. We can't wait to hear your lecture during that event. So Dr. Wheat, thank you for joining us to dissect your article.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for amplifying all of this.
You're very welcome.